we're going to be doing a review, an advanced review of The Deviant. This is a new book from ImageComics. Let's talk about the creative team real quick. This is written by James Tynion the fourth, with art by Joshua Hickson, letters by Hassan Otsmane Elhau. I don't know how James Tynion does so much because it feels like he has a book coming out every week forever.
Exactly.
But let me tell you a little before we get into the book. Let me tell you what this is about. As snow falls over Milwaukee in 1972, a blood-stained Santa Claus commits unimaginable atrocities against young men. 50 years later, a troubled young writer interviews this so-called deviant killer who still maintains his innocence from behind bars. And as Christmas approaches once again, the past returns, wielding a sharpened axe. This is pitch to unite. What is it? A pitch black holiday horror story by James Tynion and Joshua Hickson. That, I mean, I didn't know anything about this before I got into the book, before I got into actually reading it. So I was very surprised by, because it's a Christmas story, but it's called The Deviant. So like it definitely, there's a big juxtaposition there. But Clay, I know you also read it. Jeff, I know you also read it. Clay, what did you think about that? And then we'll go to Jeff.
I loved it. It's got the perfect balance of Tynion's words with really dark art to put this in both the holidays and in a horror scenario. A lot of the panels are great, but like when you first see the Deviant out in the snow, it's like picture perfect. Like I kind of almost see that as an image for a movie poster because it's just done so well.
Yeah.
And then as you get into the story, I think Tynion really comes alive with dialogue, and his dialogue of this killer is so good because it's just, I don't know if it's almost like he's taunting the person that's interviewing them, but he definitely has them under like his kind of spell, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, Jeff, what did you think?
Yeah, I think a couple of episodes ago I was talking about how much James Tynion the fourth writes, and how I was a little worried about how much he's taking on. But this I was proved wrong. He proved me wrong with this book. This is a great book. The art is fantastic. Yeah, I enjoyed it. The story, and it's pretty it's pretty brutal in places.
Yeah.
Look at how that page pops, and then when you get to like a dark page.
Yeah. Yeah, and I didn't know anything about it either. But yeah, it's a definite recommend from me.
Yeah, I really like the juxtaposition of like the holidays and the spirit, and then you meet. I really think that Tynion does a lot of self-insert, or like at least, if not a full person, like this writer is obviously inspired by part of him, right?
Yeah.
And the writer is very troubled, and he's trying to figure out what's going on. And we get to see their partner and their holiday shopping, which is really nice. And then we flash back to Milwaukee, where all these gruesome murders happen. And one thing that makes stuff sometimes a lot scarier for me, thinking about the past, is how you were really, whenever you were by yourself somewhere, you were really by yourself, right? There wasn't a quick cell phone, or like your devices, or like nobody knew. Like when you went somewhere, nobody had Find My Friends, and they may know where you are, right? Like this lady that's going into it looks like, I think it's a department store that's closed, and she goes in, and like she runs across these. But I didn't pull any preview art because it's pretty gruesome.
Yeah, it is. This is a very gory book.
So I will say that, if you don't like that type of content, maybe don't read this book, because it's full of that very gory imagery. But yeah, I really like the book. Like Clay said, I think the conversation that the writer and the so-called deviant have, it's very engrossing, and it really takes, like, it slows down the pace a lot, where you really get drawn into what's going on. But yeah, once I was done with this, I think there's only going to be 3 issues according to what I'm seeing here. This is an oversized book. So yeah, but I think it's definitely worth your time because it delivers a lot, a really engrossing story. It reminds me of, I don't know if you guys read The Closet, which Tinian also did.
No.
Yeah, it's a very just these very condensed stories that are, they don't. I think the only reason these aren't published as standalone graphic novels is because of the market, and the market doesn't like graphic novels. But these are perfect graphic novel types of stories where it's just like a one and done kind of thing. But obviously, this one's kind of cut up into three pieces.
Yeah, Tinian should do a box set of some of these because his stuff is so good.
Yeah, I agree. I think now that he's doing, obviously he's working with many publishers, but mainly Image. I think it's mainly Image that he's doing comic books with now through
Yeah.
his Tiny Onion imprint. Highly recommend this one. Really want to like if you're gonna check something out, if you're still in the Halloween spirit, but society has forced you into the Christmas spirit, bypassing Thanksgiving all together.
If you're a Jack Skellington,
this is something. If you're Jack Skellington and you want to find the true meaning of Halloween, this is a great book.
There is there's that conversation between the serial killer and the writer. There's a couple of things too, because he does have commentary on the comic book industry.
I forgot about that.
A little bit in that. And then something that I've never really thought about, because they talk about how that comic book writer is a gay man, and his first kind of interaction, maybe not, but like other people being gay brought into his consciousness came from like serial killers, and how like that made him feel as an individual, which is something that you do see that a lot in media.
So yeah, I definitely agree with you.
That was interesting.
That was interesting. Even just talking about the industry overall, like he talks about like people get what is it? They where they're like how they pay for it, or like how much artists is paid and stuff like that, or how much writers are paid. There's a little commentary on that, and like I didn't think comics was a thing you could do. All right, well, highly recommend this book, and like I said, we'll drop links to some of those things we talked about as well, and in the comments of this video, and so. Hello everyone, Dan here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for The Ministry of Compliance. This is a new book from IDW. Let's check out the creative team before we get into this book. This book is written by John Ridley with art by Stefano Raphael, colors by Brad Anderson, letters by Aaron Mayer. In this book, let's take a look at the synopsis real quick. In this book, Eisner Award nominated comic book writer as well as the team deliver a bold new vision of science fiction with the Ministry of Compliance. 37 years ago, Earth was secretly invaded by an alien force known as the Devolution, and they have been shaping the direction of humanity has been going in ever since to prepare us to be assimilated into their empire. The Devolution has 13 ministries, each responsible for manipulating different aspects of human life. The Ministry of Compliance, the most feared of all the ministries, led by the fierce Abigail Senna, makes sure that all the ministries stay in line and remain focused on the Devolution's mission. As it appears, the ministry's mission is on the verge of being completed on Earth, and it will be assimilated. Things begin to go terribly wrong, and a conspiracy amongst the ministries breaks out that Abigail must deal with head-on. This is the beginning of next sci-fi epic in an oversized debut issue from John Ridley and Stefano Raphael. Let's get into it. There's definitely a lot of world building in this book. I went into this book not really having read anything about the synopsis or what the issue would be about. I did see that it was an oversized preview, so that was definitely something that was very interesting. I think the main premise of the book feels very interesting. It does take a little bit for me to like. It's a very slow-paced book as far as revealing all the things that I just kind of went through in the synopsis. It definitely uses all these pages to really set up all the little details, right? The differences between the ministries, explaining about the devolution, explaining their plan even for Earth and how it's going, and what the big issues are that are happening now. Uh, in the meanwhile, delivering some like very interesting action, a little bit of violence, and then just some planting some seeds for the future. So I think it's a very interesting read for sure. Now let's take a look at the preview art real quick. So, as you can see, very quickly, these are the opening pages, and we kick off with like a really violent page. Now, it took a second for me to really get into what the art was trying to do, like really trying to put myself on that mindset. Um, at first, like these few first pages, they felt a little off to me, but I think that's part of the mystery, or part of like what's trying to be portrayed here, because these are aliens, but it didn't, like all these little things felt a little off to me, like especially the expressions on the faces and everything like that. So, but I think as you go evolve, as you kind of go into the issue, you can see that that definitely also evolves and changes, and it really starts to fit the tone. And yeah, the first few pages of this book are like one of the most violent Quentin Tarantino films you might have ever watched. But from there, we really do get into a mystery. So it's very interesting that we have this story that really combines the elements of something like this, the violence, the Ministry of Compliance. I think the ministry itself within the book, like the department in the book, it's very interesting because compliance to them just really means violence by fear and by like killing and stuff like that. So how far does that really get you? Obviously, it's been working for a long time, because you do find out this is not the first planet that these aliens have conquered or are added to their empire. So yeah, I don't know. It becomes very interesting in the long run, I think. And like I said, we're introduced to a lot of characters. We're introduced to some really quirky things throughout the book, as far as like the world building in here. And there's some really cool covers at the end of the issue that you can also check out. So yeah, I think overall this was a very good way to open up a series like this. I'm definitely it definitely piqued my interesting of like, okay, what are we gonna go from here? What's next? Do I even want to root for this ministry? Like, right, because what they've been doing, even our main character doesn't seem like somebody you'd get on board with very quickly. So yeah, I don't know. I think this book is definitely trying to do a lot, and I need a little bit more before I can fully commit to something like this. So we'll see. I am a big fan of John Ridley, especially all the work that he's been doing over at DC. So I'm very hopeful that I will fully get on board with the series. But this was a very good opening gambit, I think, which I quite enjoyed. So hello everyone, Dan here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for Lotus Land #1. This is a new book from BOOMStudios by Eisner winning and Harvey nominated writer and director Darcy Van Polgeest, who also did Little Bird, and is joined by rising star artist Caio Felipe, who's done things like Stranger Things, Tales from Hawkins. So, for this timely, thought provoking look into the human condition set in a dystopia as grounded as it is metaphysical. In this issue, we see in a Vancouver of the future painted by a ultra modern decay, a groundbreaking advancement in technology promises an end to entropy itself. But when an attack on this mysterious keeper program threatens the lives of everyone tied to it, retired police detective Benny Strickman is called to investigate one last case. Um, I didn't know what I was getting into when I saw this book, but the cover was very inviting. As you can see, like I really like the cover. It it leaves a lot, just like very cool design. So I was really excited for that. Also, the creative team, although I'm not too familiar with all their work, I have definitely read at least Little Bird, and that was enough for me to be like, oh, I definitely want to at least check this out. And yeah, this book did not disappoint. It's really intriguing mystery because it ends up devolving into a mystery. But the way we get there is a little bit of a roundabout. So definitely very slow pace. Definitely wants to do a little bit of world building. Like wants to explain what the difference is between the rural area that we kind of see here, where Benny has decided to retire with his kid. We also see a little bit of his interpersonal relationships with some people from his past. Uh, and we set up a kind of a mystery as to like why he's the only person that could probably solve this, which is, I think, very interesting. Now, let's take a look at some of the preview art. And like I said, I'm not as familiar with Felipe's work, but it's like this opening page is gorgeous. And I don't have a lot of art, but I do really enjoy this opening page. We see the detective here, and then the people that are coming for his help land. And I just love that we're following this little bird as it goes farther and farther, because that they were out bird watching. They were out, Benny and his kid were out bird watching. They were out enjoying nature, and all that's being disrupted. And I think this page really illustrates that very well. And then we also have this other page, which is this is right before what I just showed you. This is kind of them doing that. So I put these backwards on here, but I really wanted to start with the splash page because I think it really demonstrates kind of the range of this art team. So yeah, uh, and as I said, I think the book really lets you dive into the world, and then once we get to this mystery, things escalate very quickly. So I really like that change in pace. Combined with all the beautiful artwork, I think the art really shines as well when we're in this city in this new more modern Vancouver. I think there's some really cool stylistic choices, some excellent color choices that really kind of set the tone and differentiate the cityscape from the first few pages that we saw in the preview. So, of course, there's some really cool covers at the end of the issue. So make sure to at the end of the video. So make sure to stay tuned for that. And then, yeah, I just want to know a little bit more about Benny Sterkman. Like, why is he the only person that can solve this? What's happened in his past? Because we do meet somebody from his past that he's got a bit of a strained relationship. Yeah, so there's definitely a lot to follow up on here. So I think this is a great debut issue. Hello everyone, Dan here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for Big Game number 5. This is the conclusion of the biggest event of the summer in comic books. Let's take a look at the creative team here. This is written by Mark Millar with art by Pepe Larraz, Giovanni Nero on colors, letters by Clem Robbins. In this issue, we have the mini-series finale. This is it, the double-length conclusion of the best company crossover in years. We've seen all the beloved MillarWorld characters together for the first time and watched as Nemesis murder them one by one. But there is one small thread of hope somewhere he's forgotten about. This book is a must for fans of Kick-Ass, Kingsman, The Magic Order, Nemesis, and all your MillarWorld favorites. It truly is. It truly is. I think so. I have read a lot of the MillarWorld properties. I'm a big fan of Mark Millar. I'm a big fan of Pepe Larraz. I think they are just working on an homage. This is kind of like a love letter to the world that Mark Millar has built out over all these years in comics, which leads to the biggest crossover event of like all these properties that you probably wouldn't even thought that they could have been connected at some point, but here we are. And after the first 4 super grim issues, we end with probably the most beautiful just yeah, this is just kind of the swan song of all these, or the culmination of all these efforts. It's really cool. I think, like the synopsis read, if you're a fan of Kick-Ass, you're going to be very excited for this. There were such beautiful, of course, there's a lot of really cool action. There's a lot of like violence. There's a lot of really cool cameos and appearances. The one thing I was not expecting was like this heartbreaking moment, or like this really beautiful moment for Kick-Ass. And I was floored when I got to that page. I just kind of had to stop and put down the book and like think about like all the kick-ass stuff that I've seen, and by that I mean the character, not just like kick-ass comics. Um, it is amazing. It is amazing, and just when you think the book is done with you, it continues, and it gives you. Uh, I think I want to go back and check. There's a list that we'll look at the end of the video. I just want to go back and check and kind of highlight, like, do a little checklist of like, oh, here's the mention of this character, here's a mention of all these characters, because just when I thought they were done, they gave me one more from one that I really, really love, and it had been something I hadn't even thought about that it could be part of this. So, really cool stuff. Now, let's talk about why Pepe Larraz is the perfect artist for this. Pepe Larraz is probably one of the best artists working in comics, and just what an amazing job that he's done here. In addition to Giovanna Nero's colors, like it is beautiful. It's a amazing color palette. I love how dreadful everything looks in these first opening pages, as we have here Diabolus just coming in from the past. They were able to use that time travel technology from the last episode with a dead chrono. We'll talk about that in a second. And now they've come to confront the present, which is it is crazy. It is amazing, and it leads to some of the most like just the coolest stuff that you've ever seen. Now, of course, we have Hit Girl kind of coming through in the end, and I just really love like how much stuff there is happening. We have the Chrononauts, we have Prodigy. We also have some hilarious joke of like, here because they're using his dead body in order to they're using his dead body in order to like time travel. And he's like, couldn't even put a bag over my head or anything. So yeah, this last issue was insane. Definitely worth the money to put in. I think this is gonna be a really fun collection. I'll definitely talk more about this when the collection comes out. I can't wait to see what that's gonna look like. But man, as far as like just superhero comic book stuff, this is some of the coolest things I've ever read. Just up there. And like I said, I don't think you need to be super deep into the MillarWorld lore, but it definitely will add a lot to your experience. So yeah, I don't know what else to tell you except that at the back of the book, we have a really cool thing. If you want to dive deep into the MillarWorld series, they've added a reading order, and here you can see pretty much everything that you see on this page. It's in some way or form leading up to Big Game and part of this, which is very, very cool. Like, look at all this work that Miller and the team have, like, with multiple, of course, multiple people that I work with them. I don't know. I'm very excited to kind of go and revisit some of these books. Maybe I'll start from the beginning where it all started with Wanted, and work my way through. I think American Jesus is something I've visited. I've read some Kick-Ass. I've read some Superior. So yeah, there's so much cool stuff. Super Crooks is a really, really fun book as well that's turned into an anime over at Netflix. And the list continues, right? Huck, Reborn, Prodigy, just really cool stuff, including some of the more recent stuff like King of Spies, Ambassadors, Nemesis Reloaded, and of course, Big Game. So there you go. If you wanted a reading challenge for 2024, I think you could do really well and just check out the MillarWorld Reading Challenge. Bye-bye. Hello, everyone. Dan here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for Dungeons & Dragons Fortune Finder #1. This is a new book from IDW. So let's take a look at the creative team before we get into this book. This book is written by Jim Zub, with art by Jose Haro, colors by Adam Guzowski, and I am very excited to get into this book. We also have lettering and production design by Amari Osorio. So, in this issue, in the city of Sigil, an amnesiac hero only known as Finder tries to uncover who they are and why they're being chased by planar beings intent of capturing them or worse. But as their tumultuous journey unfolds, they discover that their fate is tied to the grand forces that dictate reality itself throughout the planes, A shocking surprise lurks around every corner of Fortune Finder, a miniseries inspired by the new Dungeons and Dragons sourcebook, Planescape Adventures in the Multiverse. So that's really cool. I like that we are exploring a new rulebook. We're exploring a new. I'm sure there's going to be some stuff here that feels like maybe new or expanded mechanics. I don't play a lot of D&D, but I have played enough to at least want to check out some of these comic book stories. And Jim Zub is a fantastic writer, especially when it comes to fantasy. I feel like really has a good feel, a good style for this type of storytelling. So that's going to be really cool. Now let's take a look at some of the preview art. Now I'm not familiar with the art team, but I'll tell you this: I love how cartoony and just how stylized it is. Um, it is really it just really fits into what I would expect from a D&D book. The character designs, they are true to form. They feel like they live here. We also have some comedic moments here as we, as the finder kind of crashes through this door. So yeah, I really like that. I love the change in the coloring. When you see a new light source and stuff like that, I think that's all very well done. And we have a lot of narration that will guide you through into the story, welcome you into this world. As you can see here, I think this book is going to be full of shenanigans, full of action, full of comedy. So yeah, uh, I think Jim Zub is a great dungeon master, I'll say, and I think there's somebody that can run a really fun game. So that's kind of where we're going here. So yeah, it's not every day that I read D&D comics, but this just looked like a lot of fun. And our friends at IDW sent over a copy of this, so definitely wanted to check it out. And I'm very interested in this world. Now, like I said, I don't play a lot of D&D currently, so if you notice things in this book that are references to that guidebook, let us know down in the comments. Hello everyone, Dan here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for The Oddly Pedestrian Life of Christopher Chaos number 5. This is a new book from Dark Horse Comics, but let's talk about the creative team before we get into this book. This book is written by Tate Brumbo with art by Isaac Goodhart, colors by Michael Martel, letters by Aditya Vidikar, all based on an idea by James Tynion IV. In this issue, Christopher, Dracula Boy, and Viv take refuge in a bizarre church and explore the subterranean boulevards of New Briar City, where the mysterious giant reveals secrets of the monster kind. I gotta tell you, as far as I think the art, this has been my favorite issue. Just when I thought that Isaac couldn't go any higher, like he just topped himself. Amazing stuff. There's some really cool stuff. We'll look at the preview pages. I also think that the gang is kind of running out of places to run, and that makes me very nervous because I really like these characters. They're a lot of fun. I do like how they kind of are coming together in this little squad, and their relationships all amongst them. I like the things that we're exploring. Of course, the people that are hunting them down are ruthless, and you really feel that, especially in this issue. There's some real small sequences that just really show you all that stuff. The pacing of this book is really cool because just when you think you can take a break and rest, it ramps up again. But I do love exploring this underground city. So let's take a look at some of the preview art here. And as I was mentioning, just Isaac Goodhart and Michael Morto just like really topping themselves from all the stuff they've been doing in previous issues. I really like how Christopher sees the world. I think it looks really cool. I feel like this top panel in the middle where he can see their insights and stuff is probably my favorite panel from this book. Like I just want to see the original art of that, and then just compare it with the colors because it looks super cool. But yeah, as I mentioned, there's some really fun stuff being done with the layouts as well, where we see like when he starts playing the music and the music just blares out and it engulfs everything, and it's kind of part of all this magical stuff Yeah, it's really fun stuff. I think this is gonna read a lot better as a trade because much fun as it is to introduce every character, this has some really good cliffhangers. So like the fact that you get to the cliffhanger and then you can turn the next page as opposed to waiting a month. Um, it's going to be really fun when it's out in a collection. Yeah, so I can't wait to see what else the team has in store. It looks like the first arc of this should be finishing up on the next issue because of the way this one left off. I feel like something big is going to happen just to kind of blow off, and then I'm sure we'll move on to a second arc. So hello everyone, Dan here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for Godzilla Rivals versus Mechagodzilla #1. This is a new book from IDW. Let's take a look at the creative team here. We have writer Mark Martinez with art by Cara Hosset and Alex Sanchez, colors by John Paul Vove, color assist by Ed Pierre, and letters by Nathan Wittick. In this issue, is your city besieged by kaiju? Do you lie awake at night anxiously listening for the monster sirens? Have you had all you can take of giant lizards, moths, pterodactyls, and shrimp? Then call Tracer Tech today. Our state-of-the-art anti-kaiju technology has allowed dozens of cities around the world to fend off the threat of a monster attack. In San Palomar, California, a sleepy city with not much going on, that is until Tracer Tech built their new corporate headquarters there, displacing lifelong citizens and forcing out the local businesses. But what is the source of Tracer's amazing, almost alien technology, and why has it put St. Palomar in Godzilla's sights? What can a couple of local kids like Alex and Jazz do to protect their city when the king of monsters and its robot doppelganger have a clash? As much as fun as all that stuff sounds, I was in here for the Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla of it all. And this book really delivers on that front. But I think what really makes this fun is that everything, like the whole story about Tracer Tech, like in these kids, it's also pretty interesting. I think it's building out this world. I think it alleviates some of the tension of like just trying to get to Godzilla. I think it's really well paced, so I really enjoy that. We have two artists on this book that I'm not very familiar with either of the work, but I think it's very well done. I do like. I feel like I think one of the artists was working on the Tracer storyline, while another one of the artists was working more on the Godzilla stuff. I could be wrong. That's just kind of how I saw it. Unfortunately, I don't know their styles enough to figure out which one is which, but I think overall I really enjoyed it. I really like this quarterly Godzilla books. They're really fun. So let's take a look at some of the art. And here you see the introduction of Tracer and people protesting outside and you can see just, I love the little details of like, oh, these are bad people because they're scaring away protesters with like these, I don't know, sound cannons or whatever they are, right? Like, come on. But then you also get to see the threat here, and they get to announce their Mechagodzilla. So there's still a lot of really fun stuff on top of all the corporate shenanigans. We get to meet our heroes, or I guess, yeah, protagonists for this book, which I'll always follow a scrappy gang of teenagers that are up to no good. I think that's a lot of fun and a big trope, which I hadn't seen much in Godzilla stories. So I think this will be fun. If you are into Godzilla, I think you get enough of the kaiju battles, which I don't have any preview art for, but trust me, it looks amazing. You get enough of that combined with this Tracer Tech company story and what's going on in San Palomar. So, yeah, overall, enjoy this. It's a fun book. Hello everyone, Dan here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for Robert Jordan's The Wheel of Time, The Great Hunt #1 from Dynamite Comics. This book is written by Rick Hoskin with art by Marcio Abreu, colors by Vinicius Andrade, letters by Jeff Eckelberry. In this exciting new comic adaptation of Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time series, the momentous events related to the prologue of the novel The Great Hunt are brought to vivid life. Dive back into Jordan's captivating fantasy world and discover the fascinating events that set the stage for the adventures of Rand and his companions as they hunt down the Horn of Alir. In Chapter 1, In the shadows, the Dark One gathers his sinister followers, the Dark Friends, and charges them to find the new dragon that has been born into the world at any cost. For unless he can separate the dragon from the light, all of the Dark One's meticulously crafted plans are threatened. So I I read this book because first of all, Dynamite was really nice and gave us a preview, but also because as you guys know on the channel, I really like the show. I really like the TV show. Now I've never read the books. I didn't know exactly what this like when I read this. I didn't read the synopsis, so I wasn't sure what time like where we were sitting at. Obviously, this is before the events of um, season two because they're looking for the Horn of Valir. But I thought it was a fun introduction to the world. I really like reading these adaptations of books like this. I wish they did a few more. I remember reading the Game of Thrones stuff, and now with this Wheel of Time, like it's a really fun way to look at a different perspective and a different adaptation into the world of something that you're already looking at an adaptation, right? I'm only familiar with the TV show, so looking at a different point of view, I think it's fun. Now, I will say the art style is not my favorite. I think it feels very retro, but maybe that's what they were going. I think it fits with the tone of the book. I really like all the reflections here, like everything's being seen through these like fisheye lenses, which I think it's a really challenging to do as an artist, especially when you're drawing so many different people, so many points of views. So I think they're doing some really creative things, and I appreciate that. Um, and yeah, as we see here, we dive a little into the world. I love all these servants, how their faces are kind of like they're very jarring, like they're very static, they're very weird. So I really like that stuff as well. And then we get to see the introduction of some of these other characters. Now there's dialogue in these pages. The preview pages don't have any dialogue, but there's stuff going on. So it's really cool. Let me show you one couple more pages here. And yeah, there's a lot of I like unlike the show, you get to see a lot more of the magical aspect of it in a different light, right? Because you don't have to deal with special effects in comic books. The advantage is that you can really do anything, and I think the creative team, is really taking advantage of making sure that they fully utilize the medium. So that's why I think it's really fun. Um, this was interesting. I don't think it's not my favorite thing that I read this week, but it was interesting nonetheless because I do like the Wheel of Time lore and I want to know more. So I'll definitely keep reading this and report back, at least to see how it was. Now, if you are a book reader, let me know what you think of just adapting this this prologue of the hunt. Like, do you think there's enough there to get a little series out? And let me know how you think that where that falls in the timeline of the show, and if we've seen any of that stuff in the show. So far from this little description, and nothing seemed familiar. Even when they have some images of the characters that I'm more familiar with, they're so differently portrayed than in the show that it's still pretty interesting to see the comparison. So there you have it. As always, thank you for watching, everyone. Remember to share, like, subscribe, hit the bell so you know when we go live. That is most Saturdays, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. Stay tuned. We have more comic reviews, trailer reactions, TV recaps, all that fun stuff here in the channel. Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye-bye.